All right. So many of you have been asking for a deep dive into Michael Sam and Vito Cammisano. And
Oh, yeah.
let me tell you, it's a fascinating story. It goes way beyond the headlines, about Michael being the first openly gay active NFL player.
It does.
We're talking breaking barriers, navigating love in the spotlight, and really getting into the complexities of identity.
It's true. It's
What's so interesting to me is, how his journey, Michael's journey to that pivotal moment, it started long before the NFL,
Right.
It's crucial to understand his upbringing to even get the depth of his story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a glamorous start, I mean, we're talking low-income household,
Right.
Galveston, Texas, 6 siblings. And sadly, the loss of a brother at a young age.
Tragic.
So, how did those early experiences, especially facing those kinds of hardships, how did that shape his, his journey towards coming out?
Well, it's tough to say definitively.
Right.
But, I mean, you can imagine growing up in an environment where, vulnerability wasn't always the easiest thing.
Yeah.
That could make coming out even more challenging.
Right.
So it's a testament to his resilience, I think, that he chose to, embrace his truth despite that potential backlash.
And he did say, "I want to own my truth."
Powerful.
And that quote, I mean, it really stuck with me because it takes immense courage to make that statement, especially when you think about the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
At that time.
Exactly. I mean, to put it in perspective, there was practically no visible LGBTQ plus representation in the NFL back then.
So what was it like back then? What were the specific factors that contributed to that?
Yeah.
Was it policies or just a general culture that made it difficult for,
I think
LGBTQ plus players to be open?
it was more of a culture of silence,
Right.
There weren't any specifically stated policies against LGBTQ plus players, but the culture was one of, don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
You know what I mean? The idea of a gay player in this hyper-masculine world, it was, taboo.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the risks involved, potential locker room backlash, negative media attention, maybe even, losing your career.
Wow.
So for Michael to step into that, knowing all of that, huge, monumental decision.
Really makes you appreciate the weight of that decision.
It
He wasn't just dealing with draft pressure.
Right.
He was potentially challenging
The whole system.
the very foundation of what people thought was normal
Exactly.
in the NFL.
Yeah, and that brings us to draft day,
Oh, yeah.
which was a day just filled with anticipation, cameras everywhere, capturing every moment. And then, the moment that shifted everything, the kiss.
The kiss scene around the world, right? I mean, that must have been an incredible moment to see, broadcast live on national television.
Absolutely. It instantly sparked conversations about, LGBTQ plus visibility in sports. Conversations that, honestly, were long overdue.
Yeah.
Some people celebrated it
Right.
as a sign of progress, but others were uncomfortable, which showed how deeply ingrained some of these perceptions were.
It's true.
You?
That single moment, I feel forced people to kind of confront their own views.
Yeah.
So how did media coverage change after that? Was there a noticeable shift in how LGBTQ plus issues were discussed, especially in sports?
I think there was. It wasn't a complete turnaround,
Right.
but there was definitely an increase in media attention toward those issues.
Yeah.
More athletes were asked about their views. More articles were written exploring the topic. And the conversation, for better or worse, was pushed into the mainstream.
It's like that kiss.
Yeah.
Cracked open a door that had been firmly shut for so long.
Yeah.
And speaking of doors opening, soon after came the engagement with Vito.
Their engagement was really a beacon of hope for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, here were these two men defying expectations, celebrating their love openly, authentically.
Yeah.
And their engagement photos, I don't know if you remember.
I do.
They shared them all over social media. Just radiated joy. And a strong sense of mutual support.
They were described as a happy and supportive couple.
Yeah.
And it felt like the world was getting this glimpse into their love story.
It did.
Whether they were fully ready for it or not.
Right.
But it was beautiful to witness.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it really felt like, a pivotal moment.
Right.
Like a powerful symbol of change happening right in front of us.
Absolutely. But as with, I guess, any relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Especially one that's so public.
Right.
There's always,
complexities. Yeah.
And unfortunately, their journey took a turn, when news of their breakup came out in 2015.
It was heartbreaking for a lot of people, who saw their relationship as this symbol of hope and progress.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it just reminds us that,
right.
even amidst these like larger societal shifts,
yeah,
relationships are so personal.
Right.
And there's no one reason why things end.
Right. And what were some of the factors that might have contributed to that breakup, especially given the unique pressures they faced as a couple?
Well, the constant media scrutiny.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't have been easy.
I can't even imagine.
Having every aspect of your relationship just
right.
analyzed and commented on publicly.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot to handle.
Absolutely.
It can put immense strain on even the strongest bond.
On top of that, they were both navigating their careers.
Right.
Michael, despite his talent, faced a really challenging road in the NFL.
He did. He was drafted by the St. Louis Rams, but later released.
Right.
Spent some time on the Dallas Cowboys practice squad.
Yeah.
Also played for the Montreal Alouettes in the Canadian Football League before stepping away from professional football altogether.
It makes you wonder if, his coming out played a role in those,
it's
the difficulties he faced.
Yeah, it's a complex issue.
Right.
And it's impossible to know for sure what factors influenced, the decisions made by teams. What we do know is that Michael's talent was undeniable.
Right.
He was a standout player in college, and his on-field abilities were never in question.
So it's like this tension between acknowledging the potential impact of his coming out, but also recognizing that he was this incredibly skilled athlete who deserved a fair shot.
Absolutely. And it's important to recognize that, systemic biases can exist, even if they're not always overt.
Right.
The NFL was, and I think to some extent still is, grappling with these issues of inclusion and diversity.
So what about Vito? What path did he take,
He seemed to step back from the public eye.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, given the scrutiny they faced.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that even though their story became this, public narrative, they were still individuals with their own needs and desires for privacy.
Absolutely. Their relationship might have ended, but their impact on society, it's undeniable.
I agree.
So what stands out to you as their most significant legacy, both individually but also as a couple?
Well, I think for me, it's the courage they displayed in choosing to, live authentically, even with the potential backlash.
Right.
They challenged the status quo.
Yeah.
And they sparked these conversations about LGBTQ plus inclusion in a space where it was largely absent before.
Right. And they paved the way for others to follow.
They did.
It's been several years since Michael came out, since that iconic draft day kiss.
Yeah.
And things have definitely shifted, but like you mentioned earlier, there's still work to be done.
We're seeing more athletes come out, more open dialogue. Leagues are starting to, implement inclusivity policies.
Right.
But there's still this gap between awareness and genuine acceptance.
So how do you think their story contributed to those changes? What specific aspects of their experience, resonated with people and helps kind of move the needle forward?
I think the visibility they brought was crucial.
Right.
Seeing a talented athlete like Michael Sam being open about his sexuality, it challenged those stereotypes and misconceptions that a lot of people held.
It's like it humanized the issue, showing that LGBTQ plus individuals are just like everyone else. They have dreams, ambitions, the desire to be loved and accepted.
That's who they are.
And that draft day kiss, that moment of genuine affection broadcast to millions.
Powerful.
It had a profound impact, right? It normalized same-sex relationships in a way that, words alone couldn't.
Exactly. It was this visual representation of love and acceptance that transcended language and cultural differences.
And it also highlighted the power of representation, right?
Absolutely.
It's for young LGBTQ plus athletes, especially in sports that are, considered hyper-masculine, to see someone like Michael succeed at the highest level.
At the highest level.
It sent such a powerful message.
It did, like a message that said, you can be yourself, you can be successful.
And you can be loved, no matter your sexual orientation.
It's amazing.
And their story, you know, with all its triumphs and complexities, it continues to remind us that the fight for equality is ongoing.
That's true.
It's about constantly, like, challenging assumptions, advocating for change, and creating a world where everyone feels safe and empowered to be their authentic selves.
Yeah, it really makes you think about, you know, like the ripple effect of their story. And what it means for, like, you know, the future of LGBTQ plus inclusion in sports.
And that brings us back to you listening right now.
Right, you.
What resonates most with you in their journey? Is it the courage it took for Michael to come out, you know?
It's such a high-pressure environment.
Or the power of that draft day kiss seen around the world. Or maybe just the reminder that even amidst these big societal changes, these are real people.
With real emotion.
Navigating the complexities of life and love, you know,
absolutely,
under a microscope. It's amazing to think about how much has changed since Michael, you know.
Since he first stepped onto the field.
As an openly gay player.
We've seen more athletes come out. Leagues are starting to implement, like, you know, inclusivity policies. And there's a growing awareness of just how important representation is.
But there's still work to be done, right? I mean, we still see
absolutely
homophobic language, attitudes, especially online.
For sure. It's this constant, like, push and pull between progress and resistance. You know, you have people who are clinging to these, like, outdated beliefs. And then you have those who are actively trying to create, like, a more inclusive,
welcoming environment.
A welcoming space.
So it just highlights how important it is to keep having these conversations. To, like, challenge prejudice when we see it.
It's so important.
And to advocate for a future where everyone feels safe and accepted to be themselves, you know?
Exactly. And it's not just about, like, policies and pronouncements, you know? It's about actually changing hearts and minds. It's about fostering empathy and understanding.
Absolutely.
And recognizing that diversity is a strength, not a weakness.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the story of Michael Sam and Vito Cammisano, what are some, like, key takeaways that we can hold on to?
For me, it's that reminder that visibility matters. Representation matters. Seeing yourself reflected in those who have achieved success. It can be so empowering, especially for those who have been historically marginalized, you know.
And it's also a reminder that progress isn't linear.
It's not.
You know, there will be setbacks, there will be resistance.
Absolutely.
But the fight for equality has to continue.
It does, and it's a fight that requires all of us to participate, not just those who are directly affected by discrimination. We can all be allies. We can all speak out against injustice. And we can all work toward a more inclusive and equitable world.
You know, we often talk about these monumental moments in history. But real change happens on an individual level.
It does.
It's the choices we make every day. The conversations we have.
Absolutely.
The way we treat each other.
It's about recognizing our own biases. And actively trying to, like, dismantle them.
And creating this culture of respect, empathy, understanding, not just in sports.
Not just in sports.
But in all parts of our lives.
Everywhere.
And, you know, as we've seen with Michael and Vito, even though their romantic journey ended, their courage and their willingness to be themselves, it sparked a conversation.
It did.
That's still going on.
Absolutely.
So their legacy lives on.
It does. It lives on in those athletes who feel empowered to come out. In the leagues that are working to create more inclusive environments. And in the fans who are challenging prejudice and demanding better.
And ultimately, their story reminds us that we all have a role to play.
We do.
In creating a more just and equitable world.
That's the beauty of these stories, you know? They inspire us.
They do.
They challenge us. And they remind us that we all have the power to make a difference.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been quite a journey.
It has.
And we hope you've walked away with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to creating a more inclusive world for everyone.